Well, here we are in Steamboat Springs, and it's my pleasure to be spending time today with my friend and fellow Vietnam veteran wolfhound, Larry Lamb. Larry, thank you so much for having us up to your home here in the beautiful country here in Steamboat Springs here in Colorado and the Rocky Mountain High up here. So we're just going to sit and have a little discussion with you today about your life. And our purpose is this: as a group of people that have a common experience in life, it was the Wolfhounds. You know, our platoon, and it goes from 1967 to 1970. And I mean, all those guys in between had some overlap with each other in some way or another. And so this was a combined story. And I'd like you to imagine it as a puzzle. And we've got that puzzle laid out on the table, and we've got all these pieces over here, but we don't know what the puzzle is. We don't have a complete puzzle until we start putting the pieces into the puzzle. And you're one of the puzzle pieces.
Small.
I'm one of the puzzle pieces. Willie's what, and so as we put these puzzle pieces together, all of a sudden it really is a mosaic, so to speak, of our lives and so forth. So I got the idea one day that our story was never going to get told. When we came home, of course, as you know, we didn't have a very good welcome home, and most of us decided, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm just going to try to move through life and stay hid out for a while. And and I was able to keep that promise for 34 years to myself. And then after 34 years, I finally decided, right after Desert Storm, when they actually let us win a war. And I said to myself, gosh, maybe I should have a little pride in my service too. And that's when it kind of started, and I started looking for the guys. So this is an attempt.
Great of you.
To try to put us all together again in a story, and more importantly, our families. Most of our families don't have a clue because we never talked about it. A lot of wives have wondered for years and years and years. I know, there's my husband's got certain quirks or whatever, but I know he was in Vietnam, but I have no idea why. What may have affected him or whatever. So this is a great opportunity for them to actually realize that their husband or in the case of children, their father, they grew up with a dad that maybe was a little different or whatever. And by the way, most Vietnam vets came home and got on with their lives. A lot of times people want to paint the Vietnam vet as a crazy old Vietnam vet. They came home and were nuts and so forth. Most of us just moved on. And one common thing that we all have is none of us asked for anything. We never asked for anything when we came home.
No, we really didn't.
We put one foot in front of the other and just kept moving. So in this interview, I'm just going to start at the very beginning of your life and ask you, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Burlington, Iowa. And my father had a business there, Goodyear Tire and Rubber, and so we moved around to Des Moines, to Davenport, and to different stores that he managed, and then we moved to Michigan, and he managed a store there, and then he got into mobile home business, which was the beginning of the mobile home craze.
It was a big deal, yeah.
And so he had one in Michigan and one in Florida. And he decided to go down to Florida instead of Michigan, so we moved to Florida, and just ran one. He ran one of them down there, and that's where I went to high school and went to college, a portion of my college career, and then
When you went to college, did you have any clue of what you wanted to do?
No, I really didn't.
It was just you were just
take the business courses, take the business courses, easiest avenue. And stay away from anything really tough. But no, I just go with the flow and see if I can get through.
So Larry, tell me a little bit about your mom.
Well, my real mother died when I was 5. And I was seven before my father remarried into another ready-made family. So we had 4 children and my stepmother and my dad. And we seemed to get along, and I loved my stepmother as much as any man could love their mother.
Okay, and then did you have any brothers or sisters, and if so, what were their names?
Sandy is my real sister, blood sister, and Dan and Mary are my stepsister and stepbrother. And estranged pretty much from my stepbrother. They just don't speak, for whatever reason. And real close to my stepsister, real close to my sister.
And where are they at now in life? I mean, where are they?
Oh, they're getting on, getting on in years too, and retired. They're in Wisconsin and Virginia, and just taking life easy, living the dream.
Did you have any particular interests in high school? Did you like any sports or anything like that?
I played sports in high school. I played football. I was too small to be appreciated. And I was on the swimming team. But that was about it for college sports.
Okay.
Or high school.
Yeah. And what high school did you go to?
Went to Fort Myers High School. The green home, the Green Wave.
Okay.
Did I understand, did I hear water skiing?
Yes. Well, water was all around us, and we had boats, and so we water skied and barefooted and jumped and
Oh, wow.
did everything. So that was certainly a sport. That was.
You barefooted?
Uh-huh.
Did you do one ski?
Oh yeah, go slalom ski, sure. Oh yeah, I didn't do 2 skis. You had to do slalom skis.
Sure.
I see.
And then if you want to be brave, you jump out of it and go into the bare feet.
Did you, what kind of boats were they using back then? Were they using the, like an old outboard with a, an old Mercury, or did they have an inboard?
Started out back when we lived in Michigan. We'd have the old 30 Lark and a 14-foot fiberglass boat. And then of course we grew as we grew older and times went on. We got faster boats and faster engines. And
Did you ever hear of Chris Craft being in Michigan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we own a 48 Chris Craft to this day.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do fully restored.
Oh Lord, I'm jealous.
Yeah, you have to come see it sometime.
I am jealous.
Algonac, Michigan.
You just send me a picture of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's quite the.
Sorry, but you said your wife said you skied, so I thought that'd be a cool part of your.
Cool.
You have to send me a picture of that though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I'll tell you. They've all got personality. Those wood boats are just.
Single hull or the double seat hull?
A single.
Single.
Yeah, it's an 18-foot runabout. 21 foot,
Yeah.
sorry, utility.
Inboard.
It's sweet. Inboard's
Oh,
a
yes.
Hercules 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
Just
And-
rumbles. Brrr.
Like nothing.
Percolates.
Like no other sound. I mean, there's no other sound like it.
It's like a Harley.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So let's move on and tell me. We talked earlier, and you were drafted.
Yes.
Tell me about the experience of all of a sudden you came to the realization that you were drafted in the Army. Take it from there. What?
Well, I was going to Florida Southern, and I transferred to. It was in Lakeland. I transferred to a junior college, and after 2 years, just because it's closer to my home, afford it, and it was easier. And then I decided I didn't really like the junior college that much. And so I said, well, I'll just step away from it for a bit, look at the big picture, and then I'll go back in and see what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, it had to be less than a week. And I had a letter in the mail from the
Greetings.
Greetings, we want you. Report to Miami.
Mm-hmm. And so your life was it's changed forever at that
Changed
point.
forever. I never would have met my wife. I never would have probably been here. My whole life would have been changed.
Did you meet your wife at the draft board or what?
She isn't that old. No, I met my wife here in Steamboat Springs.
At Steamboat?
In Steamboat, at
Okay.
the tugboat.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
I might get into at some point in time, which was a restaurant and nightclub, very popular, iconic, if I could say so. And she was a customer one night when we were having a party for the ski school and ski patrol. And she was there with another gentleman. And we just kind of made eye contact, and then we kind of got together, and it was right from there.
Well, that's
Been
awesome.
together ever since.
I was gonna ask, I wanna rewind for just a second. When you got that letter, did you think, wait a minute, there's gotta be a mistake, I'm a college student?
No, well, we knew what the draft cards. We knew what the draft cards were, and do you want it? Do you want to burn it? Do you want to get rid of it? What do you want to do? And when you got a letter, you knew it was a draft letter.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't a surprise.
yeah.
I didn't think it was going to come back quick.
Yeah,
I thought maybe I had a couple months.
sure. What date did you actually go in the Army?
I went in February 28th, 1967.
And you were a single guy,
Yeah.
just not a care in the world at that point.
No.
And then where did you wind up? Where did they send you to basic?
I went to basic, where a lot of the people in the South went, to Fort Benning, Sand Hill, and completed basic there. And then went to a leadership prep course to advance leadership, and then moved on to AIT at Fort Lewis, Washington.
At the end of basic, they gave us an MOS. What did they give you?
I was 11 Bravo.
So right from the get-go, that was your initial primary MOS, 11 Bravo. Did and at that point, as I recall in basic, everybody was pretty well aware that 11 Bravo was infantry, and we all knew where guys were going in infantry and so forth. And AIT, you went to Fort Lewis, which, by the way, is another infantry fort. That's what they specialized in. Tell us a little bit about Washington.
Oh, Washington was beautiful. I actually got a chance to get out and get away from the fort, and get to the mountains a little bit and get down to the seashore, and made a couple friends there that we'd go and spend a weekend away or do something like that. Enjoyed it. As far as the training, it was just another military fort. They march up and down the streets. You go to the rifle range and you eat the same chow every day, and practice taking your weapon apart.
Do you remember, were you still doing M14s?
Yeah, we were doing M14s. We were doing the Grand. We were doing the Grand and basic, and then we went to M14s at Fort Lewis. And then when I went back to Fort Lewis, when I came back from Germany, we went to the M16s.
Yeah, and that was really a big change. I mean, as I recall, the M16 was like a revolution. I mean, it was man, it was light.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I really liked about it. It was light. I was, when I was over there, they called me the Monkey Man because I acquired a monkey.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, but
I was gonna ask you a question though, if you wanna back up just for a minute. How long was the bus ride to get to basic?
to get to basic, Lord,
Was that like 25, 30-hour bus ride?
probably.
And
It was
then,
Miami all the way up to Benning.
when you got there, the DIs met you, and do you remember,
Hit the ground.
and did they bring out the trash barrels?
I don't-
That when they said they'll give you a chance, one chance to be honest and come out with any weapons, drugs,
No,
paraphernalia?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, a lot of the guys, they said, you'll get one shot at this, and otherwise we're gonna find it anyway when we strip search you. And some of the guys were amazed at all the weapons, the guns, the knives, the stuff that people were dumping in the dumpsters. So you don't recall that?
No, the only thing I do recall, there was a guy that was re-upped, and he was in with our draft list, and so he went to Benning with us, and because he'd been in the service before, they made him an assistant platoon leader. And they told him to pick somebody to be an assistant for him,
A squad leader.
the squad leader.
Yeah.
And so he picked me, and I went, well, that's great. I get my own bedroom. I don't have to sleep out there in the barracks. You know, don't have to do KP. You know, so it was a perk. But I do remember that.
Do you remember how many times you saw grown men cry when they walked out of the wonderful barber shop at, how many men were weeping and crying?
Oh, there's a couple of the funnier stories. Well, listen, you know, I know how you feel. I won't cut your hair. I won't cut. I'll cut it just a half.
A little off the top.
A little off, and shave this guy right straight down the middle, and he had hair hanging down this side like. And the guy started crying.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And then the rest of us would be sitting over in the corner. Get it shorter. To the other guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so after AIT, did you have a couple of weeks off before you had to go to Vietnam? Or you were going to Germany, you said?
Yeah, no, I was AIT. Then I went to Fort Hood to track school, which was 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, 2 weeks.
What's track school?
Armored personnel carriers and tanks.
You were riding in the tanks?
Driving.
Wow. You drove?
Yeah.
Mechanized infantry.
Mechanized infantry.
Huh.
And I found out.
So you saw the movie Fury, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
I kind of got it left-handed that the guys that went to mechanized infantry were all being shipped to Germany. They weren't going to Vietnam. And I went, that sounds like a bright idea.
That's a good one. That's a good
Europe.
place, yes.
I see Europe.
Wow.
So off we went to Europe.
Huh.
That's, yeah, of course, isn't it funny how things don't always work out? Because you didn't stay in Germany.
No.
You ended up going to Vietnam. Do you remember the date that they shipped you to Vietnam?
I came in country, and I was laughing the other day because I talked to you. It was April 1st. April Fool's Day, we landed in country.
What a joke.
Yeah. Pinch me.
Tell me where you landed.
Cameron Bay.
So you went into Cameron, and the plane lands. They stop. They open the door. You hit the door and start down the steps. What was your first impression of Vietnam?
Heat. The heat.
Humid?
Yeah, humid and heat.
You didn't tell them why you ended up in Vietnam from Germany.
Well, I told John up there.
This is a good story. How is it that you wound up in Vietnam and not in stayed in Germany?
Well, levies, I don't know if your audience or you know what levies are, but they're imposed on units around the world to take a number of members from their base and send them to a combat zone. And so they came down on a levy on our company, and so they called the names out who was going to go. And didn't hear my name, and they got to the end, and it was all right, didn't hear my name. And then I saw this kid scurry in the building, and heard him scurrying up to the roof of the building, and next thing you know, he pops his head out. He's about 4 stories up, and concrete below.
Oh.
He says, I'm gonna jump, I'm not going to Vietnam, I'm not going. Yeah, I sort of shake my head, get down, kid, get down. It's not that bad. And he wouldn't get down, and they threatened him to Article 50.
Oh, of course,
And,
sure.
you know, court-martial him and everything else. And I said, wait. If I take his place and he gets off the roof, is that okay? And they said, I suppose that'll work.
Are you kidding?
No. And so I took his place and went and signed the papers, crossed his name out, put my name in.
And you didn't know what was coming.
No, I had no idea. No idea.
Lucky you that you got to land at Cameron Bay. At least that you got the illusion that you were coming to a nice beach.
Yeah.
Hey, the beach!
There was white sand.
Oh, crap.
Reminded you of Old Home Week.
Right.
What was your impression of Cameron when you got there?
Well, we got there and it was expansive buildings to houses, big flat buildings with hot tin roofs and dirty windows that they seem to find more newspapers than I can imagine to clean the windows with. It was just a sprawling sandy place.
Did at that point you didn't know what you were going to be doing in Vietnam? You hadn't actually been given orders yet?
No, they did say, okay, we're going to form up in lines. Everybody that came in, we're going to form up in lines, and this line will probably go to this unit, this line will probably go to this unit, this line will probably go to this unit. Some guy was standing in line next to me, he says, oh man, don't get in that line. Don't get in that line. They get all the trouble. And, they're in it all the time. I said, really? Okay. So I shifted over to the other line, and he shifted into my line.
No.
Where did I shift to? I shifted into the Wolfhound line. This guy, he just wanted to switch to me because he knew. The Wolfhounds
Gee.
got into the action.
They had a reputation.
Yes, they did.
They sure did. So from Cameron, where did you go?
Straight to Cu Chi.
And then deuce and a half, a ride,
Yeah, it was a deuce and a half.
and then
I think it was a deuce and a half. I can't remember if it was a deuce and a half. I think it was a deuce and a half.
did when you went to Cu Chi, had you even been issued a weapon yet?
No.
And did you feel like I did? Like we're like in a combat zone and we don't even have a weapon to protect?
That projection night, we hadn't got, we were supposed to get issued the next day or something. And they mortared the compound. And I'm running around going, what do I fight with?
Exactly.
Says, just duck, get under cover, do whatever you can, keep from getting hit by a mortar.
Find a bunker.
Find a bunker. So I crawled in some bunker, hung out in there until the whole thing was over. But no, we weren't issued our weapons until the next day.
And of course, the rumor mill in Vietnam was awful. I mean, there was an opinion or there was a story about everything. So when you're going to take a truck ride to Cu Chi, somebody initially said, well, they're getting ambushed going
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
And here you are. Well, what are we supposed to do? I mean, we really didn't know what
No.
we were supposed to do. And it was a weird feeling, wasn't it?
It was a big state of limbo.
Yeah.
You kind of just left out there and they just hoped it worked out.
Yeah. So you get to Cu Chi. Who was the very first person that you met when you got to Cu Chi?
I think it started in Cam Bay and carried over to Cu Chi because that was Herb and I, Randy Kramer, and Teach. And we all sort of hung together because we came together. And so I would say that was my closest association
Okay.
when we first got there.
And then, of course, Teach was just in the platoon at that point. And then, do you remember who the company commander was at that time?
No, I don't.
If I said Captain Blackwood, would that ring a bell?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's been 50-some years.
Oh yeah.
No.
Platoon sergeant. That would have been Dale Cutler, probably.
Cutler, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Willie always called this guy Dixie, the RTO.
Oh, Dixie, the RTO.
Tim, remind me of his name. He was the one that we tried to get his interview, and his grandkid was playing basketball when we did Tubbs and those guys.
Was that the chiropractor?
No, that's not. My memory is horrible.
Sorry.
Do you remember Maurice Tubbs, the little guy that? Yeah, I know you did because he was with you.
Mhm.
And then he'd go down in the
Yeah.
tunnels.
Oh yeah. They tried to stick me in one of those tunnels once, and I said, no, I'm too big. I can't fit. I said, well, that's why we got him. I said, he fits in there. I said, he's welcome to go in there.
And now, just as a little aside, when you watch the interviews, Tubbs's interview is one of the most interesting, I think, that we've ever done because of his story when he came home. When he came home, he became, honest to God, railroad bum.
Did he?
No, I mean, you know, the bums that ride
Yeah.
the railroads,
Oh, yeah.
like from coast to coast, and it's a life. And he talked about that for 30 years. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So he was another one that came home,
Dropped out.
but just didn't quite
Fit in.
get all the way home,
Yeah.
you know. But and he's well. When you see the interview, he gives a great interview, and he's very candid, you know, about. But I didn't know what the life living on riding railroads. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I didn't know what hobos and whatever.
Uh-huh.
That was a life.
Oh, I know.
So, so you were assigned to Charlie Company, and when they sent you out to the field, do you remember where you first went? Away from Coochie, you went out you went somewhere.
You know, not having access to maps and really being close to the situation, knowing where I was, I just went where we were supposed to go.
Yeah. So, but
I didn't have anything.
and if I'm not mistaken, you guys at that time weren't like in a fire support base per se.
No.
You were in hard. You just set up hard spots and right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind
No,
of like.
we just go out and engage and either get shot up or shoot somebody up.
And yeah, I mean, it wasn't like you lived in a
No.
nice.
No, no. I told my wife one time about a story. I said, "Well, when did you change clothes?" I said, "Well, one time, you know, we bathed in the Saigon River, and that was, you know, a good bath unless we could go AWOL and get back to Coochie and you know, and get to an actual shower."
Yeah.
I said one time I bent down to get some water like that, and the shirt just ripped off my back. It was so rotten.
And that's another thing. We didn't get a lot of replacement clothes
No,
and
we
stuff.
didn't get replacement clothes, boots. We got jungle rot in our boots. Tried to park us up in trees so they didn't have to pull us out of the field.
Yeah. And when you first joined the platoon, what did they have you do? What was your assigned spot?
I think from what I've read and what I've heard, the same thing that everybody gets. They hand them a grenade launcher and a 45. Yeah,
Oh, he got duped. So on behalf of your brothers, Wolfhound brothers, I am so sorry.
and I've got a 45 story when I was qualifying for it, that everybody that qualified could leave the range, and I just kept marching closer and closer and closer to this target because I couldn't hit it with this 45. So finally, I've got as close as we are here, and I hit it. And he says, "Okay, you pass."
Now, do you know why you couldn't hit anything with that 45? Because it was completely wore out.
Yep.
It didn't have any riflings left in it. The 45s we got were from World War II, I think. I mean, they were I had your hand-me-down.
Could be.
When I got to the platoon, I got your 45, and the only way that weapon would have been effective is if I would have stuck it in a gook's mouth and pulled the trigger. Otherwise, because remember when they let us do those little mad minutes where they'd let us shoot?
I love those.
I got some tracers for that 45, and I put them in there because I wanted to see why I couldn't hit the target. I couldn't hit anything. And when that bullet left the end of that gun, it would go that way or up or that way. I mean, it went every way but straight.
It's nice to hear it wasn't just me.
No, I'm serious. And so it became a worthless, it was just extra weight then.
Yeah,
And speaking of weight, how did you like that rucksack that they gave you to carry around?
Well, I got rid of that too. I basically stripped down. It wasn't quite what I was supposed to do, but I stripped down to just a bandoliers and ammunition canteen, and I even got rid of my poncho and picked up a gook poncho because they were so much skinnier and lighter.
Oh, light, yeah.
And
Where did you get that?
ammo off a dead gook.
Okay.
And an ammo belt, and I didn't carry anything else.
Yeah, that rucksack was a killer. I mean, you know, they wanted you to carry like 65, 70 rounds, and Man, that was,
So they found out later on, "Hey, how's he running around here? And he's more agile than everybody else. And, he can get around because he's not carrying all this crap." And so the next thing I know, I got a bandolier over each shoulder of M60s.
oh yes, oh yeah, you all of a sudden became an ammo carrier for the, yeah, exactly. And so some of the guys that you remember, of course, Dale Cutler was there, and Willie, and Cal Johnson, you remember Cal,
Mhm.
and Rabbi,
Oh yeah, Rabbi.
and Herb Nye.
Right.
Okay, so that was that kind of group. I mean, and it's a distinct group. That was the second platoon at that time. One thing that I remember hearing about you guys is that you never really had a full group. I mean, you were always short.
No, you're always short.
I mean, it just never had a,
No, always short.
yeah. And which, of course, as you know, when you were there, that puts you at a complete disadvantage of,
Extreme.
if you do get in a gunfight, you wish you had twice as
Oh yeah.
many guys out there.
No, we seem to always be short.
Let me ask you this. When you were out in the field, you were pulling ambush patrols, I'm assuming.
Search and destroys.
Do you remember your very first night ambush?
I'm thinking about it because I remember a couple of them. We were we had the company behind us. And no. The most effective, I will say, not necessarily the first one. Most effective one was along a tributary to the Saigon, and a village over here, and the tributary here, and we had reason to believe that guns were coming from the tributary into this village. And so we set up an ambush, took the whole company and walked them into these trees, and somebody was smart enough to say, okay, we're going to split off half the company, space them out, and walk them out the other side. We're going to leave half the company in.
Okay.
And sure enough, we sat there that night and we heard some splashing, heard some boats coming up on the river. Then looked out the starlight scope and saw somebody walking down the berm, coming towards us because we were right where they wanted to be. And at the right time, we pulled the claymores and they pulled everything they had and shot everything they had, and it was a totally successful ambush. And we got everything, we got everybody.
And that had to have been like a shock. Your first time I mean, that was a real gunfight.
That was a gunfight. I have to admit I was still a newbie, and still carrying the M79. And in the bushes as far away as you are, there was somebody crawling. And I did what I was supposed to do, and I put a buckshot shell in there and shot it from 10, 15 feet away. There was no more noise.
And you could,
That was a stark reminder of maybe the first person I ever killed.
well, and you actually could hit something with that buckshot round.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like the 45.
No.
I mean, if you pointed it,
Yeah, that's it. But he'd have been laughing at me.
yeah. And if this is an inappropriate question, we'll just pass it. But I remember when I was in that situation myself, and the very first time that you came to the realization you probably killed somebody. What did you kind of feel? Kind of sick?
Oh, I did for sure. I mean, I was still scared at the time. We weren't sure whether there's some more people down the trail or up the trail, or some more people coming back across the river. And so the fear was still there, but there was sickness. There was sickness that I'd done that.
Yeah, I felt the same thing. And I think probably it's because we were brought up in such a way, that you don't kill and stuff like that. And now we've been put into a situation, and it doesn't take very long before you figure out it's either me or him. and he's actually trying to kill me.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I mean, you do what you have to do.
And we throw this word around, this four-letter word, kill, and people seem to use it so freely today.
Mm.
I'll kill you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, they're meaning they want to do harm or do something like that. But I said, don't use that word. Don't use that word around me because it
Yep.
means something.
Yep. Did you guys throw hand grenades?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I used to love to throw.
Funny story. I might not even want to put this on there. Is that I got dysentery. I went to some village and to get I saw somebody coming back with a big hoagie sandwich. You know, we were on our ski rations. Big hoagie sandwich, shit, just bulging out of it and stuff. Where'd you get that? I said, I got it from Mama San over there. And I said, well, I'll go there and get one. I went over and got one of those things. And I should have had some sense, but I didn't. And here she is digging in these old rusty sardine cans, digging out fish that they'd probably gotten out of the rice paddies, and putting it in there, and all types of other stuff. Well, it was delicious. I ate that thing.
Especially since you'd been on seas for a month.
Yeah, and about 24 hours later, that was it. Boy,
You were poisoned,
I
yeah.
was poisoned. I just blew up, and it was coming out of everywhere. And they didn't even want me around. They gave me as many medications as they give me regarding the Hockmon Bridge at that time.
Oh, yes.
And said, well, your job's going to be, we're going to give you this case of grenades. You're going up on top of the Hockmon Bridge. And every 30 seconds, every minute, you'll be throwing one over to
Yep.
stop the sappers from coming
Yep,
under,
exactly.
blowing the bridge.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we don't want your stinking butt around here.
Speaking of which, when you were on the Hockmon, is that when Teach got gored by the...
Yes, that was. When he
Tell
got-
us that story.
Well, we were getting our allocated fly-in. You get a beer and a soda, and a lot of guys trade their beers for sodas or sodas for beers, and so everybody go to the chopper and get it. And we were starting back, and it was Willie and Teach and me, and this little kid came along with a H2O bison, and thing looked at him for whatever reason, didn't like Teach, and boy, he just turned his head and went right at him. And Willie had the wherewithal and the sense just to turn and just unload a full clip from the animal's butt all the way to his head. You know, the thing went down. One of the pieces of shrapnel from one of the bullets went into Teach's knee. Yeah, that's what put him in the
And the
rear.
water buffalo went on top of him.
Yeah. We had to pull it off. Yeah, but that's what got him to the rear, and he was.
Did you guys actually try to pull the 2,000-pound water buffalo off of him? Did you grab a leg, and were you guys trying
No. We tried to move it and couldn't do
to?
it.
No way.
He couldn't do it. Just hooked a Jeep or something.
Yeah, that's what they did. Is they commandeered a
Yeah.
Jeep from someplace.
I was gonna take you back, and not to stir up trouble, but I think what they try to teach young men in basic training, you know, I've heard a lot of veterans over the years say, I wasn't fighting for my country, I was fighting for the guy next to me. I was protecting the guy, my brothers next to me. You know, they talk about that moment, and many guys have gone back through that difficult moment of the first time they had to defend their life, because if you wouldn't have shot that guy, he'd have shot you.
Oh yeah.
And you know, that it doesn't make it a justifiable, like it doesn't just cancel it, but it makes sense in a practical way that, you know, like kids play video games and they don't know, they have no idea in a video game situation that is not life. When
No.
you have an opportunity and you're either going to have your life taken from you or you're going to have to defend your life. I mean, it's a very fine line. And I've not heard one person ever have taken pleasure in that.
No.
Every
No.
person, physically, emotionally, and the guilt and years of having to deal with, did I do the right thing? And you know, and that's a hard place to be. And But
I probably went over there with too idealistic, with too many John Wayne movies in my head, thinking we're gonna get over there and, you know, we're gonna
Fight communism.
fight communism,
yeah.
stop the domino theory, and we're just gonna roll over them. And then when reality struck, somebody went down beside you,
Yes.
or whatever, or you had to pull back, and it wasn't working out. Then all of a sudden you start thinking, wait a minute, I think we're over here fighting for each other.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know,
Do you remember, you brought that up, so I'll just partner with you in that part, but do you remember the first time you saw one of your brothers get killed?
yes, and I've tried to blank it out of my head because you got it right in the face. I can't remember who it was.
Preacher.
No, that wasn't Preacher. No, I can't remember who it was.
Where was it? Where were you guys at?
You know, that goes back to my orientation of where we
Yeah,
were,
yeah.
where we were in Vietnam. It could have been the Hobo Woods. It could have been the Iron Triangle. It could have been.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, one of those areas.
Was
Rubber plantation.
it during a gunfight or was it a sniper? Or?
No, it was during a gunfight.
Okay. So,
He stuck his head up the wrong time.
just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I know who, I can't remember his name, but he stuck his head up, didn't he? Was he behind a berm and he got up to shoot? Was that?
I think so.
Because Teach, I think, Teach was out there at that time, I think.
Yeah.
That was actually before he got gored. And it was just, it happened so fast. And by the way, I was gonna mention, like, that night with you, things happen so fast. You know, I mean, it's not like you're sitting there going, well, now should I do this or should I wait? I mean, people don't understand what the chaos of a firefight's like. I mean, it's just complete chaotic.
Well, as we were speaking earlier, it's not like the old days you march in phalanx against each other. You spot 10 guys over there and pick and choose which one you want to shoot at, because you don't know who's shooting at you to start with.
Exactly.
You never see them, and I'm not sure they know where you are. So you're shooting blank rounds sometimes, and you know, put enough out there, maybe you catch something.
And we don't know. I mean, as soldiers, we don't know if we hit something or didn't, or.
I know.
I
We're
mean,
trying to get in there, get a body count, they drag them all away.
And what's interesting about these interviews, and this is amazing that we can talk about this, because there's a lot of vets that will never talk, and not even Vietnam vets, like Iraqi freedom and Afghanistan, they will not talk about their service. Dad's got a good friend's son, he won't say a word about his service. And for veterans to actually talk about things, you know, Dad had the exact same thing happen. They assigned a new kid, he said stay down, the kid popped his head up, took one right to the head, and so for years he's had the guilt. Why wasn't it me? I was the older guy. Why did that kid have to?
Yeah.
And you said, you know, you talk about everything happens for a reason and a purpose, and not that, you know, we don't know that, but to talk about it, I think it does two things. Number one, it just continues to pull the bandages off of our lives when we allow that to heal slowly, but it allows somebody else to heal. So thanks for I know those are tender moments, and you know, thanks for talking about some of that, because that'll mean a lot to somebody.
Well, and to show you how that works, the son that he's talking about, Tommy Clack, is it's his son Adam. Well, Adam did 6 deployments in the desert.
6.
And Marine. And he came home pretty messed up, and finally decided that because they wouldn't let him, he wanted to be a sniper with his buddy, going out with full permission to kill anybody he wanted to. That's what his goal was, and they kept holding him back. So he goes, if you don't let me do it, I'm not gonna re-up. And so he didn't, and he came home. And what did he do the first week he was home? He hired on with Blackwater
Yeah.
and went right back over and made big money. In other words, what he was
Doing what he
making,
wanted to do.
what he was making in the military was nothing compared to what he was making $100,000 a pop over there. So I mean, and doing what he wanted to do.
Yeah,
And so
not much.
he came home, he just recently got out of it, and now he's back home. And my book came out. Of course, his dad and I are really close friends, and Adam has seen enough and heard enough about us that he's interested. And so a buddy of his started a podcast. And I'm not a techie guy. I've heard of podcasts, and I think I
I'm with
knew
you.
that, I think I knew guys got on there and talked, and then
Yeah.
you have people follow you. You have people that just tune in and listen to whatever the discussion is. So this buddy of his, they were talking, and Adam said, my dad's buddy just came out with a book. I bet that'd be an interesting podcast. And they called me and they said, would you be willing to do it? And I said, sure. So we're doing this podcast, and all of a sudden, Adam is the guy asking me the questions, and Cape, his buddy, is the host. He's like the guy that is running the thing, but Adam and I are the two doing the dialogue, and pretty soon Adam's starting to interject his stuff. I don't even think he realized
I
it.
didn't realize this stuff coming out.
And of course, all this is taped, right? I mean, this is all being taped. And usually podcasts are about 30 minutes. Our first podcast was 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And they finally, Cape just went like this. We gotta stop. In other words, he says, I gotta we gotta stop somewhere. And so I didn't know. I mean, I'm just answering the questions, right? We're just having a discussion like we're doing here. And so Adam said, well, I know one thing. This is not going to work. This is not going to be a podcast. This is going to have to be broken up into several parts. In other words, there's going to be part 1, part 2. And so they asked me if I'd be willing to do that. And I said, sure. Well, the next thing I know, Adam emails me and he said, I just finished your book and all this, that, and the other. And he says, I haven't told anybody this, but I started writing a book about my time in the
Oh,
desert.
good for him.
And he said, could I send you a chapter and have you read it and tell me if you think it's even worth pursuing? And I had the same feeling. When I started writing the book, I got to a point, I'm going, is anybody else going to be interested in this, or is this just for me? In other words, is this just
Right.
my own
Mhm.
ego here, or are other guys gonna like it and get something out of it? Well, come to find out that all of this is starting to work in his coming out, and he needed this.
Oh, good.
Now he's healing. I mean, and his dad, Tommy, called me on the phone and said, man, I don't know what you guys are doing. He said, but Adam is really starting to come out.
Well, that's great.
And so something good. You know, I think Tim is saying is somebody's going to watch this interview and go, well, you know what? I thought I was the only one. All these years, I thought that, and they were in the same firefight you were in. They know the same guy got shot in the face. They were right there. And they're going, I wonder, I thought I was the only one. And they're gonna, and so this is really good. This is helpful. So when I got to the platoon, Joe Wascom, Big Joe, had a monkey named Sheila. And he would, every new guy that came in the platoon, he'd go up and he'd say, hey, you want me to take a picture of you and Sheila, and you can send it home to your folks. I'll do it for $5. I think
Entrepreneur.
he had a little retirement program going.
Yeah.
And so anyway, then somebody said, oh yeah, well, you know, Larry Lamb had this monkey, or Sheila, whatever. Did you have a monkey?
Yeah, I had a monkey.
Tell us about that.
Well, I think it might have been around the Hawkmont Bridge, and villagers were going by and forth and everything. I always thought monkeys were cute or something.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
This kid was playing with a monkey and stuff like that. And, gee, I what? Gee, I what? I said, what? I don't know. How much? And I can't remember what it was. It wasn't anything.
Cheap.
Yeah, cheap. And so I got this monkey and played with it. I kind of liked it. And he'd ride on my shoulder. You know, he's only
Yeah.
that tall. He'd ride on my shoulder. And then night time coming, he'd climb inside my shirt. He did not like to be out at nighttime. And he'd try and pull him out, and he'd bite me. God,
Oh, yeah.
he'd bite me. Then come out in the morning, smile, be cheery and happy. Finally, we got ambushed in a big open rice paddy, a field across, a hedgerow across the back of it, and we were in front of it. And we had two guys walk out, and they immediately got dropped. Realized we were in an ambush, and so I was about halfway out, and they said, well, just get everybody back and regroup. And so I started back, and I a couple of times I've been meaning to look this up, but I started back, and there was a guy beside me on the other side of the berm, overweight guy, Jewish, didn't want to be there, didn't like fighting, and he kind of stood up, exposed himself somewhat, instead of staying down on your belly and crawling back to the brush, and boom, they popped him right there, right through the neck. And I said, oh Lord. So I kept crawling. My monkey I was squishing my monkey. Finally my monkey got away from me, and he started crawling on the berm. So he would, if I was here, he was there. If I was here, he was there. So they knew exactly where I was. So they keep shooting at that area. And I got rid of the monkey after that.
Yeah. So did you just give it to somebody
Yeah,
else? Or?
I just, another sucker. Hey, oh, you'll love this. Somebody came by and seduced me. I said, take this and you'll love it.
And it may have been the same monkey or not, I don't know, but
Yeah.
the monkey Joe had, it was named Sheila. And it acted the same way your monkey did, in that it could be really friendly, but then just bite you. It was just, real,
Draw blood.
real unpredictable. And this Joe's monkey, if we took it out with us, it did not like Vietnamese. I think it had been abused or something, and that thing was an early warning device. If we were walking in some vegetation and that monkey started going off, you just knew. I mean, it was like having a scout dog. We had a scout monkey.
Scout monkey.
But that monkey stayed around for a long time, and then when Joe left, he finally gave it to the guys in the supply room. And the supply room guys kept it in. Then it was out of the field. Then it was in Cu Chi. But there's more pictures of Sheila, I think, on the website than there is any of the guys.
I was gonna ask,
Is that on the Wolfhound website?
Yeah.
I gotta look at that, see that.
did you get to do some cool stuff? Like, did you ever get to meet the mountain yards?
No,
Or did you guys get to do any special ops stuff that was like fun, cool, adventure? I know that sounds
Well-
weird, but like,
fun, cool adventure for
I
us
mean-
was to technically go AWOL. If a convoy was going by and we had a stand down day, they'd look the other way and we'd jump on the trucks and head to Saigon. And, partied up either in Saigon or Cu Chi, partied it up for the day, and then we just had to be back by nighttime.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like I'm busting out. I'm going out and, having some fun, nothing's gonna happen. Of course, about half those convoys got ambushed, going or coming.
Exactly, yeah. How important was it for you to receive mail in Vietnam?
Oh, it was extremely important. That was back in the days continued on, that you'd write it on a C ration box. And write your mail, send it out, and then when mail call would coming back in, it was just mail call. Because everything, this guy get a letter, this guy get a letter, that guy get a letter. Maybe you got one, maybe you didn't.
Sure.
But then you sit there and look at the poor guy that didn't get one, and you almost wanted to share yours with his. And it was, you know, it was our touch to the world.
Who was sending you letters?
I get letters from my mother, my aunt, my ex-girlfriend, my dad.
Family?
Yeah,
Oh,
family,
okay.
family, pretty much.
And then how about care packages? Tell us a little bit about a care package.
Oh yeah, we get the care packages, and you know, somebody would always get the great care package. Somebody just get a care package.
Oh, you know what, you're right, no. And you know, like Paul Naso, his parents used to send him Italian sausages and pepperoni. I mean, he would get the care package. And you know, and most of the other guys like us, we'd get a coffee can with chocolate chip cookies and popcorn in it, which was great. I mean, I'm not complaining, but it was never, I mean, these guys were getting canned Nally's chili and,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
no.
it was
Not just candy and some cookies.
oh, I mean, it was, some guys really got great
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
But you're right about one thing, there were guys that never got anything.
I think there was the day that Rabbi said, well, I said, you know, I can't stand this 45, so I think I've got something coming in the mail. And I can't remember if he ended up with a 38 or a 357.
In the mail?
Yeah, that his parents sent to him.
Yeah, I think his dad
Yeah.
sent it to him, yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you say your closest buddies were in the platoon?
Yeah, that's the only thing I could really think of were Rabbi, the guys I went over there with, Rabbi Herb.
Were you there the day that Herb and I got separated from the,
Well, yes, I was. That's the day I got my second wound.
well, let's start with the first one. When's the
Well,
first
first
time you got hurt?
one was back when the monkey was crawling along the berm. I finally got back to the relatively safe area that you could hide in. And so we called in an airstrike, some artillery, and somehow an errant shard of artillery
You got a piece of
got
it.
it right in my back like somebody stuck me with a knife.
You got a piece of it.
Yeah. And so that was that one, and then the second one was the night that, the day that we walked in, and we were supposed to be a blocking force, and we ended up being an advancing force, and this green lieutenant walked us right into an ambush, and I mean, the trees just lit up, the whole place just lit up. Everybody scrambled for whatever they could do, and that's when Herb went down.
And
We
was
pulled
that
back.
when the 2-point guys got shot?
Yeah,
Okay.
FO
Was that Fitzgerald
and,
and
yeah, FO,
who?
FO.
Yeah.
And so we pulled back, they said pull back, so we pulled back, I don't know, 50 or 75 yards, try and regroup. And then they said, we're going in, we're going back in after them. We've got men there. And so we went back in online, and God bless her, he screamed, hit the dirt, they're everywhere. And boom, as soon as we hit the dirt, the leaves, the trees, everything started falling down around us. And at that point in time, we knew we were nose to nose, close to hand, and but we still had to get to her. And before I had, not that I would have had a chance, but before I had a chance, a goop popped out of a spider hole, lobbed a grenade at me, and hit a piece of bamboo right in front of me.
Oh my gosh.
And Randy tells a different story that it hit his helmet. I know it hit the bamboo and hit the ground right in front of me. I could smell the fuse.
Oh.
And that's how close it was. I turned to jump and ran into Randy, Rabbi, and it blew off. And I had a prick 25 on my back at the time, and it just completely destroyed that. If I'd have been 6 inches higher, you know, nothing, but as it was. I still took it in the hip, chest, stomach, all through this area. And that was the end of my service in the field.
Somebody that was there, I think it was Glover, Sergeant Glover and Hannah were there. You remember those two guys?
Oh, yeah.
They said that you guys were literally exchanging grenades.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many grenades going back and forth that if one landed next to you, they'd throw it back, and they'd throw ours. I mean,
Yeah. We couldn't see these guys, so we just kept throwing them out
It was
there.
crazy. They just said it was absolutely nuts.
You know, unfortunately, they retreated enough or stopped enough that the guys were able to get in and get hurt out and save his life. You know, it was great.
Now, just so you know, if you didn't, Captain Blackwood was the CO at that time.
Okay.
Remember I mentioned Blackwood's
Now you're
name?
saying Blackwood, that kind of seems.
He was the CO. Yeah. But Cal Johnson, I think,
Yeah.
was in on that one. Willie, it was one of the only times Willie wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't there. He'd gone the AWOL leave deal. He wasn't
Yeah,
there.
that was one of the few
And
times.
he was upset. He was mad.
Oh yeah.
He was mad that he wasn't there to protect his boys.
Well,
to do stuff.
he in his mind, if he'd have been there, this would have never happened
Yeah,
because he'd have been on point,
yeah.
and he would, you know, which we know is not true. I mean, what was going to happen was going to happen. But were you there long enough to see Glover light up the flamethrower?
No, I was.
So
They'd taken me back to the 12th and back by that time.
Dusted you off?
Yeah, dusted me off.
And then after that, Glover, where did they get a flamethrower?
I don't know, but I had the chaplain come in when I was in bed out of the operating room, and I've never thought I'd ever hear a chaplain say this. He said, "Well, you're doing all right. They say you're going to be well, but you know it's going to take some time. Whatever." And he said, "I just want you to know, we went in there with a flamethrower and burned those son of bitches to death." Chaplain said this. And so that had to be that incident.
I mean, and I don't even know where they got the darn thing.
I never saw one over
Well, we never carried a flamethrower.
When they medevaced you out, do you remember, like, did you go unconscious? Did you lose consciousness?
No,
did a medic come help you?
Well, I was in this ditch with these guys, and I couldn't breathe. I collapsed my lung, put a hole in my lung, and I just put down. Well, this isn't good. I said, I gotta get out of here.
So you were in a little shock even.
Yeah, I wasn't really in pain that time. I was in shock, and I said, I gotta get out of here.
At any minute, did you think this could be it?
Oh, I did that. Didn't it?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was an open field about from here to that the top of that berm that I had to crawl across to get behind where the CP was and
Oh man.
everything else, you know, to help me.
So you'd be exposed
Yeah,
again.
so I said, well, I've got to do it. So I didn't even carry my weapon with me. I just got on all.
So you left your weapon.
Well, he'd just
Yeah.
crawl
I got on
and
all fours trying to get back there.
Wow.
Got back there, a couple guys came out and grabbed me and dragged me in. And there was a dust-off helicopter right there, and they threw me in it. And took me back to the 12th and back. I do remember, after I got out of the helicopter, I don't know what, something burst or something, because they put me in the old ambulances they had back then. And I just started bleeding everywhere. I'm going, God, you know, I was just trying to hold blood in. And they got me in.
Well, did you go kind of north of Scared? Were you way beyond?
That's when I got scared. That's when I got scared in the ambulance.
Yep.
And then I got mad in the hospital because the doctor came in. Said, well, that's the same thing we had in that big black guy yesterday. Said he was in here the same type of wound, so we'll treat it the same way. I'm going, oh, what's that? So he takes his finger, a tube, and sticks it through my chest wall into my lung. And I mean,
Just hearing that,
I screamed and passed out.
I mean, just
Later-
hearing that, just, ugh.
Later on, he said, "What a wimp you were! That black guy we had in here was reading a Playboy while we were doing this."
Oh,
I went,
liar.
I don't think so.
Liar. Oh, man. So, at that point, how many months had you been in country?
That was June 13th, and I got country April 1st.
So, you probably weren't there to go on R&R, had you ever?
No.
Okay.
And R&R all planned to what was the beach that even the Viet Congs went to?
Say that
The
again?
beach.
Oh, trying to be, Von Tau.
Von Tau. Even the bad guys went there.
Yeah, oh yeah, the BC and
Yeah.
and us kind of shared the beach.
And I said, I want to go there. And then I filled out the papers. I want to go to Bangkok. And never saw either one of them.
You didn't make it.
No.
So, did you receive any awards or citations?
Yes. I have 2 Purple Hearts.
Okay.
When you recovered, where did you go from the little medevac hospital?
Well,
there?
the 12th evac, where did you
Yeah.
go from there?
I went to Japan, Camp Zama,
And
Japan.
how many surgeries from now back to then, if you can think, how many surgeries and operations and procedures?
I don't know how many surgeries. I was in Camp Zama for a week or 2 weeks, and I can remember the doctors coming in and checking your clipboard on the end of your bed,
Oh, yeah.
reading, and all of a sudden you come to one bed and say, "No, he's going back." Somebody was wounded, and he could heal, wounded in the leg or somewhere like that. And he's going back, and so you're going, he's coming again today. Is he going to look at my bed?
Oh, yeah.
Am I going back?
And at that point, you couldn't even conceive of that.
No. And so they said, no, he's going back to the States. So they sent me back to St. Albans Naval Hospital.
Did you get to ride on the military plane?
Yeah,
In the litter?
yeah. When the Star lifter, what was it called? It was a big plane.
C-130?
No.
No, it was bigger than that.
Yeah,
It was
a
a
jet.
hospital plane is what they called it.
Yeah,
They had nurses and stuff on
Oh,
it. Yeah.
and I spent 3 months in the hospital there at St. Albans. And then Uncle Sam decided that I was good to go. He sent me to Fort Hood, Texas.
What did you do at Fort Hood?
Nothing. Every time they said guard duty or KP or go march here or go do this or go do that, I went, oh no, it's hurting too much. I can't do that today.
So you were the consummate Vietnam vet. At that point, you were a Vietnam vet, and you didn't volunteer for nothing.
No.
And if there was some detail, there was a way that you always figured out how
How to
to
get out of it.
get around it.
Yeah, I'm just doing my time and I'll be out
Yeah. And so, where were you at when you got out?
in Fort Hood.
Oh, so you were at Fort Hood. You did your remaining time, and
That was about 5 or 6 months.
did they ever try to get you to work on one of the ranges or instruction or anything? 'Cause
No, they never came to me to ask for help in any manner. And on my DD 214 or some other piece of paper, as I was acting a little strange at the time, and they said recommended not to be sent outside the United States, continental United States.
Good. That's okay with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, what job did you get after leaving the army?
Like I said, I went back to Florida and waited for my friend from Germany. And he showed up. And when I was in Fort Hood, I bought myself, wasn't a new one, but a 2-3-year-old Corvette, beautiful Corvette. So I drove that back to Florida and stayed there for about a month, and he got out. And we packed up everything that we had, or we thought we had, and we could fit in a car, and took off and hit Route 66,
Oh my gosh.
and
The old Route
Yeah.
66.
traveled that, and finally got to San Diego. Said, well, we'll make the decision whether we want to be in Florida and go to school, or be in San Diego and go to school. And we got there and I said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, Florida's the land of the nearly wed and nearly dead. And man, look at all these chicks out here on the beach. And
Greatest place in the world.
the decision was made.
Yep. And if you'll recall, Hobie surfboards were just
Yeah.
over at Mission Bay. He
Mhm.
started his little shop over there.
Yeah.
And he was getting to be kind of a celebrity. And remember the boards that he was designing
Mhm.
was kind of the trend and so forth. And the guys before Hobie started in was those remember those
Oh, the
long,
longboards.
long boards and so forth. So he really kind of, right there at Mission Bay, had his little shop, and he revolutionized the surfing
Oh, yeah,
industry big time. So you went to San Diego State.
Mhm.
And as I told you before, when you were at San Diego State, where I was born and raised was about 8 blocks from there. That's where I grew up. And so you lived in Mission Beach, and tell me a little bit about that. What was that like?
Well, it was paradise. I worked in a bar down there called the Beachcomber, to try and subsidize my living. And when I wasn't doing that, it was on my bicycle on the boardwalk, or my motorcycle up into the mountains, or on the beach, and every night was a party.
We used to refer to that as trolling. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
We were trolling. But every night on the beach. And you know, I write about that. It was just surreal. You didn't even have to know. I mean, you were welcome. You were welcome just to join a group, or,
Yeah,
you know, if you had a 6-pack and
yeah. You're six pack, you're a hero.
you walked up, and yeah, the rest was history. So that was the good life. When did you leave San Diego?
Left there in '73, and I'd been up to see a girl in La Jolla that we'd been dating, and I spent the night up there. And I woke up in the middle of the night going, something's wrong. Something's wrong. You know, when you have those intuitions.
Oh yeah.
Something's wrong. She said, well, what? I said, I gotta go home. She said, well, not now. It's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I've gotta go. And I ran out, got my van, headed back down there, found my front door wide open, looked in and everything was gone but my dirty underwear.
Oh man.
So I grumbled about that for a while, and then a friend of mine, just gotten out of the Navy at the same time, lived around the corner, said, well, I'm not going to do any more school. And I said, well, I'm finished. And what do you think we should do? He says, I want to take my dog, which is the predecessor to this one, the 3. He had a dog named Kid. He says, I want to go up move to a lake in Alaska. Live on a lake in Alaska. And I went, that sounds way too cold for me. Snowy, and no, I'm not doing that. So what would you like to ask? I'd like to build a Ferris cement boat, or buy a boat, or get a boat, and sail around the world. And he went, he said, I was in the Navy. Every time I got near one of the ships, I got seasick. He said, I'm not going with you.
Oh.
So I said, well, you know what? Just a month ago, I did a circle around the United States to see some relatives, Florida, Michigan, around here, and came through here because a roommate of mine in college, San Diego State, was living here. And I pulled into town. I no sooner pulled into town, somebody greeted me, asked me if I wanted to go have a beer, and had the beer. Then somebody was talking, say, I'm going fishing this afternoon. Do you want to go fishing? Well, I don't have fishing rods. Oh, I got plenty of fishing rods. And then one thing led to the next. And I said, well, they're having a big party out in Strawberry Park. You want to go to a party? Wow. And then somebody said, well, if you don't have a place to sleep, you can crash at my house. And I spent about 6 days here, and drove back to San Diego, talked to my friend Jerry, I said, well, we've nixed the other two ideas. You know what I found? I found the most friendly town, the most beautiful little town in northwest Colorado that you just will not believe unless you see it. We packed up the next day and
I'll be darned.
borrowed a buddy's van. And I'd sold my Corvette by this time. Had a 1972 Beetle Bug, Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah.
And towed that behind and moved here lock, stock, and barrel.
For heaven's sake.
And that was in '73.
And what kind of a job did you get here?
I started first of all, I was in the vending machine business. They needed somebody to service all the vending machines, northwest Colorado. And so I did that for them, and then I got to know the guys at the tugboat, because the tugboat had been opened on 72, 73, New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And got to know them, and they said, well, you want a job here? I said, sure. So you're not a bartender? I said, yeah, I practiced up in La Jolla. And I said, you know, I'm not the greatest bartender, but I know how to bartend. Then one thing led to another, and led to manager, and then led to I didn't like the owners, and started buying the owners out, and
Unbelievable.
went to another, and ended up owning it.
Another question I had, did you ever keep in touch with any of your Vietnam buddies?
None other than Willie.
And how long after you got home did you touch base with him?
I was here in Steamboat, so it had to be, 5, 6, 7 years at least, maybe more.
And when you finally talked to him on the phone, of course, he sounded just like the same old
Yeah,
Willie.
oh, yeah.
Did you get a sense that Willie wasn't doing too good?
Well, I did get that sense. And then when we saw him at the reunion, I'm still confused about that one, because he came with his parole officer, didn't he?
No, his psychiatrist.
Psychic therapist. Okay. Came with his therapist.
And the only way I could get him to the reunion was if his psychiatrist would be the one that would bring him. Otherwise, Willie wouldn't come. And that fear, he was afraid that he'd break down or have a problem. And
Oh, yeah.
and Ashley Hart was the guy's name, his therapist. And Ashley was.
With Rabbi too.
What's
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I reached out to Rabbi also.
There was a period of time that we.
Well, and you know, Rabbi and Willie kept in touch. And it was because of Willie that I found all you guys. Willie had a memory. He knew exactly whose hometown was where. He knew where you were at because you apparently had talked to him. So I mean, he made it easy for me. Willie actually really had me turn a corner in finding guys.
Oh, good.
Because when I was finding guys, I was getting white page directories and calling. I made thousands of phone calls looking for guys.
God bless you.
Thousands of phone calls.
Bless you.
Before my wife got her first computer, and I realized that I could actually go online and go to a specific state and go in a town and actually look for guys' names and so forth. And that was a lot of work. And then one day I was going through some of my old orders, like Purple Heart order or whatever, and I noticed here's all these other guys' names on there. And it had their social security numbers. Because in those days, social security number meant nothing. It was your military. We got an ID when I went in, and then they switched them later to the social security number. Remember, you got a U.S. number?
What was your U.S. number?
567 something.
Yes, 5379468.
Yeah, I used to know it. And so that made a tremendous, because now I could go in with a social security number and buy a consumer report. And I could find out their address, their phone number, any relatives that lived near them, and man, that's when this whole thing exploded. I really started finding guys. So, but Willie, Willie really helped. He was really a great help.
I'm glad he was.
And he remembered, man, that guy could remember everything.
He was a great point walker.
Oh yeah, he did.
Saved my butt a number of times.
And you met your wife
Met my wife here
at the tugboat.
at the tugboat the same year, in '73. And she was having dalliance with someone else at the time, and kind of escaping the back east syndrome. She's a Vassar girl, and Vassar and Brownie, and so we hit it off, and we started trying to find a place to stay, another place to stay. And finally got our own place to stay, just us, and we moved on from there, and we got married in 1977.
Did you guys have any kids?
We've got 2 kids.
Okay.
2 of them right there.
And what are their names?
David and Brittany.
And what are they doing?
David is a CFP, a financial advisor for Edward Jones.
Okay, good company, by the way.
Yeah.
One of the better ones, I might add.
Good.
Ethics, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
He's got an office here in town, so he lives here in his town, and we have 2 grandkids, 2 beautiful grandkids. And our daughter is down in Denver. She's married, and she's still searching for what she really wants in life.
Mm-hmm.
Although she's taking up a number of things. She's a DU graduate, and she got into animals a lot, and she became a veterinary technician, and working that field.
That's awesome.
Good
Good trade too. I mean,
but she keeps thinking she wants something else, and she has to find it. I don't know.
cool. That's great. Kind of getting towards the end here. I want, which camera is Larry on? Okay. I want you to look right in that camera.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me, what does your wife mean to you?
What does my wife mean to me? Well, she has been by my side through thick and thin. I've had a couple strokes, had cancer. I've had some business dealings that went south, some that went north, and she's always been right beside me and been my partner, and not to mention my lover and mother of my children, our children, I should say. And I hope to die an old person with her at my side.
Do you feel kind of like I do? Do you feel like your wife kind of saved you?
Oh, there's no doubt she's still doing it.
You know what? Isn't that the truth?
No,
No, isn't that the truth?
Oh, she pushed me and directed me. Well, do this. No, I don't think you should do that. And you know, and like I say, she continues today.
That's awesome.
And so maybe I have some bad habits, and maybe she'd like to cure them. Take them and
Yep.
make them work.
What is your definition of a hero?
What is my definition of a hero? I think, to me, a hero is the person who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And he didn't really get to live out the fame of hero, but he gave it being a hero.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I always think of it, and I mentioned this several times, those guys that didn't make it home with us, they never got to reach their potential. And to me, Vietnam was not their potential. In other words, you know, they just got cut short of their dreams and so forth. And that's so regrettable to me. I think that was one of the worst things I brought home with me, was I left, you know, the guys that got left behind.
I think, and I've gone through this, I don't know if it's a guilt deal, but I was there a relatively short time, and I feel like I'd left them. I don't know if I could have been any help or done anything for them.
That's called survivor's guilt, of course, we know that.
And I just feel like I left them.
Yeah, and I can put that into perspective too, because I that's my number one problem in life, and has been ever since Vietnam, the survivor's guilt. And I try to look back, and number one, in the time that you were there, you had a lot of experiences. I mean, you were involved in a ton. See, guys that were there in the later 69, 70, it wasn't the same war.
Well, I was looking up the other day.
It was not the same war.
Some of the actions and some of the KIAs, and in that period of February, March, and June was probably one of the bloodiest for, bloodiest for the Wolfhounds.
It was. And
68.
when I walked into the platoon, Glover's bunker at Crockett there, they had a stake, and it had little wooden things with the names of all the KIAs up to that point. There was a ton of, that was all your guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so here's there was 3 of us new guys that walked in. Who are those? You know, we didn't know. Who were those guys? Those are the guys that got killed here, you know, a couple of months ago.
we lost half our company at one point in time.
Aspect of Vietnam that Larry has mentioned to me more than once was that there was a lot of racial tension. And I don't know if he told you the story of how he was the only one willing to dive into the river and try to save the guy who was going across on the line, and finally found him down there by his afro and pulled him up.
Yeah.
And then everyone said he drowned him.
No, that wasn't exactly true.
Well,
They came down the line, 'cause we were trying to get across the tributary, and they wanted to know anybody could swim, so this black guy was my,
Barton Brooks.
I don't remember. He was my connection to the black people. I loved him, he loved me, we were friends. I mean, there wasn't any racial deal at all there. And he came down the line, and we were just sitting there having a snack or a drink of water. Can anybody swim? Anybody know how to scuba dive? Oh, I do. Well, come with us, come with us. Okay, so we went up there, and they had a little boat that they brought in, a little aluminum boat, and they had a bunch of black guys out there on it trying to jump off it and swim down to get him, and they did 2 feet out of the water and come back up. They couldn't swim, but they were trying. And so I said, I don't know, let me go out there and give me a rope. So I went out there, got in the boat. First time I swam down, I couldn't see anything.
Oh, no visibility, yeah.
There's no touch. I touched his body, and I just, oh my God, I mean, you know, touching a cold body in the river.
It's here.
Oh,
It's
he was
yeah.
dead.
Yeah, he was dead. And, oh my God, broke the surface, and oh, he's right there, he's right there, he's right there. You go get him, he's right there. So they started jumping back in again, almost drowned a couple more. And I said, give me that rope, give it to me. And so I tied a noose in it, and I swam down and found him. I was running out of air, and the best thing I could find was his head, and I put it around his neck.
Mm.
And I pulled him up. He was on the rope, the end of the rope, and I pulled him up. And of course, it looked like he'd been hung. And man, oh man, did the shit come down on me? Because I was the bad guy.
Oh, for heaven's
I
sake.
was the bad guy that hung him.
I think I have to move that truck, but I'm gonna let you finish the interview and I'll sneak back in
Yeah.
here. But I think is she taking the car?
Yeah, she is. She's gonna have to get out of it.
Okay.
You can just pull up forward there.
Okay.
I mean, if you can, towards the grass, if you can truck in too long.
What does the American flag mean to you, Larry?
It's a symbol that I honor, I love, and I think I have some respect and knowledge of what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I see it, I get chills, I salute.
Yeah, I do too. I feel the same exact way. It is my goal to, when we get all of these together, and of course they're on the website now. I want to be able to have families, children of the veterans, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I want this to be available to them for 100 years.
Oh, that'd be great. That's
And
great.
now, this is a generational thing. In other words, why is that important? I was sitting at home one day and I got a call from my cousin in Illinois, and she said, I don't know if you'd be interested, but I've got your grandfather's, all of his military stuff that my aunt had left behind when she died. And that's my mom's, you know, that was their dad, my grandfather, and he was World War II, World War I artillery, and he was in charge of the battery, sergeant. And I go, yeah, sure. So she sends me this stuff, and it was like a little annual like we got in high school in the Army with the pictures, and they had guys making comments about other soldiers, and my grandfather was mentioned several times as being a great leader and always cared for his men and safety for, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, God, I wish I could have met him. You know, if nothing else, I wish I could have just found out what it was like in his war. What was it like for him? Well, what it was like for them is they got gassed, mustard gassed, and of course that turned out to be, you know, ruined their lungs, and it never healed, and it was excruciatingly painful. And a lot of them came home and committed suicide. My grandfather was one of those guys, unfortunately, leaving 2 little girls and a widow. But I got to thinking to myself, what would I give if I could have just seen him and heard him talk about his life and his war? And that kind of gave me an idea about this. And so what I want you to do is I want you to look in that camera, and I want you to give all of these kids that are going to come, give them your best advice. What would you have advice for them?
All these kids. Well, the first thing I would say is to respect and love your parents. For they're the ones that should guide you to your maturity. And during that period, I would love to see you get as much education as possible. Use the education that's there to get, and you will be surprised how insurmountable it will be in the future for you. Also, if you can dig deep enough and understand the decency and what am I trying to say? Democracy, the world we live in, the freedoms we have. If you could understand those and cherish them and try and build on them, this world would be a lot better place. We have some bad things going on right now. And I'm going to be too long gone and too old to help it, but the young people of today can reshape and make this world a better place to live.
Well, great, that's awesome. Larry, again, one more time, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing with us and allowing us to come into your home. And
John,
it's not only meaningful to me, of course, it's going to be meaningful for all the guys, all of the guys that served with you and everything. This is going to be big time for them. So thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you for being so persistent and traveling and going so many places and doing this job. I mean, I hope you're being paid a lot.
You know, that's one of the joys of volunteerism. You know, I mean, you get things and you get blessed in different ways. It's not always.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You still have to put gas in the truck.
Yeah.
Still have to get the truck. Still have to have the equipment. Still, you know, you still have to make it work.
Yeah.
And that takes money.
So thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you.